All right, reboot take 2. So this is Jana Hunkler from Berkshire Rides. She's happy to be here again and talk to us again about local problems which we can then hopefully solve and push globally. Take 2.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm Jana from Berkshire Rides. I've been there since 2004. What I'd like to do is give you an overview of what we do, the people that we serve, the area, why it's essential, I think, to individuals and to the economy and to the entire county, and what our challenges are. We do have, I think, a lot of really rich data that should be able to help us tell our story. And I don't have the time and I don't have the skills to mine that data and turn it into something that we can look at our system and see if it's working, what works well, what doesn't, what we can change, and then use that to approach funders and approach partners and try to make us a more sustainable organization. So Berkshire Rides has been around since 2002, and I don't always have notes, but I don't want to miss anything. We do a lot of stuff. So we are a nonprofit corporation. We were incorporated in 2002 in Massachusetts. Our basic mission is to remove transportation as a barrier to employment, to better quality of life, and to community involvement. And it's pretty broad. So anything that falls under that auspices, I think we should take care of. And we have a tendency to have a lot of problems. High energy staff, which is great. So our biggest piece is the employment transportation. We have vans on the road 365 days a year from 4 a.m. to midnight in the North County area. They bring people back and forth to work, job training, adult basic ed classes, anything that increases employability for people that are living in the North County area. So I don't know if anyone here has, but we have had folks from Williams that go to internships using our program, do other kinds of volunteer work in the community. I don't know if anybody's done that. Use Berkshire Rides for that. We operate when and where the B bus is not in operation. For the first 10 years of our program, we receive the same funding as the B bus, so we don't want to double dip. We won't follow the bus down the road. If the bus doesn't work for you, then you can get on Berkshire Rides, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We also have a community van pool that we started in 2007, and in that van pool, we currently have a fleet of 4 vehicles. Small agencies that need transportation for their clients can sign those vans out, so we're kind of like a rental agency. We purchase the vans with grant money so we can be very low cost. And agencies like the Northern Berkshire Community Coalition. Does anybody have anything to do with those folks? Anybody volunteer in the community? Anywhere? Where?
Berkshire Food Project.
Okay, so actually Berkshire Food Project at one point was one of our partners. They would take the van twice a month and go to Hatfield to get food. So it's that kind of thing. It's an agency that's too small to actually own their own vehicle because it's expensive, but they can buy into ours just for the time that they use it. So that's our van pool. We also have started about 2 years ago, and we're able to get a grant to pick it up again this year, a travel instruction program. Travel instruction or travel coaching can be to a group of people to teach people how to use public transportation, and it can be for individuals. And it's very helpful for seniors that no longer can drive and still want to get around on their own, not depend on a family member, and for persons with disabilities. So it really opens up the world to people that for various reasons can't or don't drive. We do group instruction, like I said, we do one-on-one. Sometimes we might spend 40 or 50 hours with one person, just bringing them on the bus, following them on the bus, teaching them how to read a schedule. But it opens up the world, really, for people that don't have access to their own vehicle. And then we do advocacy for transportation. We do it here, we do it across the county, across the state, and across the country. I have been, up until this year, I was working for an organization as well as Berkshire Rides that did a lot of teaching and training for the federal government, for the FTA. So I've been all over the country, from Anchorage to Tampa, spreading the gospel of transportation and why it's important, and especially about customer service. And how are we funded? So historically, we got our grants, like I said, the same as the B bus did, through the federal government, through the FTA. Lately, the last 2 years, our funding has switched to the state, and we've been at the mercy of the legislature. We've gotten what are not earmarks, but are earmarks in the budget, written in a specific amount of money for Berkshire Rides. That's currently how we're funded. We collect a little bit of rider fare. It costs $2.50 to take one of our vehicles around. Sometimes an agency may pay or sometimes an individual may pay. But we charge $250. The rides this year, starting October 1st, will cost us $13. And then occasionally we get local grants. Like I said, we got a United Way grant to purchase the vehicles. We got $3,000 last year for someone to help us upgrade our software. So occasionally we'll get little bits of money that come in locally, but we don't have a real strong local investment, which I would like to see happen. So a little bit more detail about what we do. We give people access to jobs and job training. We help people seek and keep better jobs. And we help seniors age in place. We help the disabled stay at home. We bring a lot of people to home health care. So I'm the home health care worker, and I'm brought into your home to help you. You come back and forth. We allow the employers to tap a larger pool of employees so they can consider people that live further away. They can consider people. A reliable vehicle doesn't have to mean that's the only way you can get back and forth to work. We bring a lot of people up to Jiminy Peak, which is a long way. If you don't have a reliable vehicle, it's a very long way. They pay a little better for their entry-level positions than people in town do, which is why people seek employment there. But Jiminy is always looking for employees. They expand from a base of about 200 in the summer to 1,000 from November to March. And so we help them be able to reach out to a lot of people that might not be able to get there otherwise. And why I say we're essential. So taxis are relatively expensive. Depending on where you're from, it might not sound like it. But if you think of a minimum wage entry-level worker. So within North Adams, North Adams has taxi zones, not meters. So many miles from the center of town is $6, and then you go 2 miles out and it's $8. So just a real simple taxi trip. If you lived in town and worked in town in North Adams, it's $6 one way, $12 a day. Yeah, it doesn't seem that much, but $12 a day is $60 a week. $60 a week, if you're making minimum wage $8 for 8 hours, that's a whole day's work if you work 40 hours. And most employers don't give you 40 hours because they hit a benefits limit, so they give you 28 instead of 30. But if you were an entry-level worker making minimum wage, working 40 hours a week, one full day's pay, gross, goes just to your transportation. And that's a lot if you're only making $60 a day, $64 a day. BRTA does have commendable service with what they do. I don't know if anyone has experience with the bus system here. It's obviously not Metrobus, but for what they have, they work as well as they can with the communities. They have bus service 6 days a week, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And for some people that will work. It's inexpensive. There's hour headways, which means the bus only passes by every hour. If you miss one, you're in big trouble, or you have to go really early to make sure you don't miss one. But they're not always, it's still very difficult sometimes to take the bus. Anybody take RB bus around here? Anybody take the bus at home? You got to give me something because we got to discuss after. All right, I'm going to just throw a few of these out, and what I want to do is look at the bus schedule real quickly, and got to take one of each color. So hopefully we got some multitaskers.
What are your main costs?
Our costs are, for the employment program, really are the rides. Our budget this year is $460,000, and $360,000 is going to go to the rides or more. So about $100,000 is going to administration, rent, computer software, salaries, that kind of stuff. So, B-Bus. So let's take a B-Bus trip from Mohawk Forest to Walmart. That's a typical trip that we would help someone do. And first you have to be able to read the bus schedule. So we're going to go on a weekday. We have to punch in at 8:30. Anybody already got it? Quick. The schedules are difficult. They're not real. I think they're not easy to read. I've read a lot of bus schedules around the country. The other thing is the color they're printed on. If you have any kind of visual impairment, black on blue, like you can't even. It's very, very difficult to read. But, so in the interest of time, you can follow me. So we have an 8:30 shift. Mohawk Forest to Walmart, going the way the bus goes, which is longer than the direct route, is 4.5 miles. It would take 11 minutes by car, is what Google told me. So to punch in at 8:30, I would leave Mohawk Forest on the 8:10 bus, and that's the grayish colored schedule. I'd get to Main Street at 8:20 and have to jump on the 8:20 bus number 1, the blue schedule, and I'd arrive at Walmart at 8:29. So if everything goes perfectly and the bus is not on time, I have a minute to disembark, run in, and punch the clock. That's pretty doable. If that was somebody's schedule, they could do that. So now let's throw in daycare. And let's make an easy daycare. I don't know if you guys are familiar with North Adams. On Current Highway, on the way to Walmart, there's a daycare that's pretty popular called Bonnie's Bunnies. So let me get on the bus at Mohawk Forest with my kid, bring her to daycare, and then get on to my job. So we jump on the bus. We tell the driver that we need to stop. It's not you have to do a bell call. I need to stop at Bonnie's Bunnies. So now I've got the kid too in her diaper bag. And we get off the bus and we get into Bonnie's Bunnies. We drop the child off. I have to wait for the next bus. The next bus is going to go by at 9:20. So now I get to Walmart at 9:30. So we change that. We get up and we get on the 7:10 bus. So now I have to be out of the house with the baby at 7:10. I get dropped off at Bonnie's Bunnies at 7:20. They don't open until 7:30. So I wait till 7:30, bring the baby in, stand back outside, and wait for that 8:20 bus. It's just not doable. As much as they can do, it's not doable. So we fill in those gaps. So Berkshire Rides would pick up mom and baby, drop baby, bring mom to work, and then do the reverse. We use a shared ride system, a van pool system, so there will be other people getting on and off. It's not a direct ride. It's a model that also maybe the data can inform us that there might be a better way to do things. Right now, we'd pick up 2 or 3 people at Mohawk Forest. We'd drop some off along the way. You know, you may be on the van for half an hour for a 10-minute ride, but hey, that's what you get for $250. Otherwise, you take a taxi. You know, there's only so much that you can do with the funds. Anyway, so we have taxis, which are expensive. We have the bus, which is affordable but really undoable for some people, and that's where we fit in. So we serve a lot of people. In the last 6 months, we've had 372 separate riders. We have some people that have been with us since 2002, are at the same job, and have taken us back and forth 5 days a week straight through. We have people that use us for 4 days when their car's in the shop. We have people that use us for a short period of time and then afford their own car and start to drive themselves. We have a whole gamut of people, but just looking at data in the last 6 months, so almost 400 people. We've been to 107 places of employment, and we've done a little over 15,000 rides from January to July. So people really use us, and we screen them out. If they can take the bus, we teach them how to take the bus. If they can carpool, we find a carpool. So we really just try to take people that have no other way to get back and forth steadily to employment. And what we really do is this. So these are some of my riders. I have 2-parent family. Both are working. Both have minimum wage jobs. They have 1 car. Mom takes the car to work. Dad takes us to work. 2 boys that are teenagers. 2 people, full-time, minimum wage. Mom eats 1 meal a day because there's not enough food because the boys are growing. That's who we serve. We have a person that we took 2 years ago, back and forth every day to McCann. She completed the LPN program. She has 2 children. And now she's on her own. She's making enough money, a sustainable wage. She's completely off all assistance. And we did that. We helped with that. We brought her back and forth. We had a mom that came in 2 weeks ago and asked if there's any way we could waive her rides for 1 day, $5, because she needed toilet paper. These are people that are living right here, Williamstown, North Adams. And Williamstown Theater Festival, WTF. The first day of our van pool the community van pool. The day we got the vans registered, I got a call from the mayor in North Adams asking if I had any way to get a family to see their child in the summer theater program at the Williamstown Theater Festival. So we got a volunteer and pulled the van out of the park and brought people over here. But those are the kinds of services that we provide. I feel like they're really essential. You know, they're essential for people's just survival, but they're also essential so people can enjoy the community. So here's where we run into our problems. Ridership is on the increase. Prices are up. Costs are up. And funding is scarce and getting scarcer. 4 years ago, I had $725,000 to run this program. This year, I have $460,000. I have more riders. Gas is more expensive. My contract with our ride provider is more expensive. Insurance has gone up. We need to develop a sustainable business model. We need to make sure we're efficient, that we're actually hitting the target, we're filling the need that people have, not a need from 10 years ago. Are we still current? Are we still working? And how do we sustain that? How do we develop a business model that can keep people employed and that can add to the community? Our weaknesses that I see is that we have a shoestring budget and a very small staff. There are 3 of us. This morning what happened is I got a phone call at 6:10 this morning that I had one person that was out today that had been sick and had a doctor's appointment. I got a phone call at 6:10 at my house saying, with the other person, sick as a dog, coughing, headache, fever, saying, I can't come in. And I'm like, well, I can't stay. After this, I have a funding meeting, so I'm headed off. So, you know, I had the one person that was relatively well with the doctor's appointment came in to reset the phone, put some information on the door, and leave stuff saying, sorry, office is closed, leaves your information. I'll go back at 4 and try to enter all the schedules for tomorrow. So definite weakness. You know, we're tiny. We have with the budget we really have no way to expand staff, so we have to be really efficient with what we do. What suffers the most, I mean, this is just, you know, an odd day, but what really suffers is that we can't do long-range planning. We don't have the time to dive into this data. I wrote a small grant to the Williamstown Community Chest earlier this month. So I tried to pare down all the data we had just relative to Williamstown. It took me 3 days because I can't sit and do it. And then it becomes, by the time you get it finished, it's not relevant anymore, you know, for what you're trying to do. Our funding also is year to year, and now that the last 2 years that we're dependent on the federal, on the state legislators who are very supportive. Our representative and senator are very, very supportive. But how many times can they go to the well and say, I need $500,000, I need $500,000? There's a lot of programs that have need here. We did get our earmark this year. The news came to me on July 10th. Our year starts July 1st. So we just kept going on a wing and a prayer that we were going to get money. We still haven't started to get our reimbursements. So I've had no money to pay bills from July 1st till now. I'm, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul. But that's what we do. That's what we want to change. So the funding model really just is not sustainable. I mean, what's been happening for the past few years is I'm a really good beggar. And I can't do that forever. We have to have something that's a little bit better. We do have strengths, though. You know, we have a lot of integrity. We say what we do, and we do what we say, and the community knows that. We're able to be very flexible and creative with what we do because we're a private not-for-profit. We do use public funding, but we're not a public entity. That allows us to be able to change quickly and respond to community need. We have a lot of relationships out there. You know, I've been in the community a long time. We've built a lot of relationships with our riders, with rider advocates, with agencies. We definitely fill a real need. I hope I demonstrated some of that there. And like I said, we have a lot of data. Every time we can jump on if you guys get interested and want to actually see what it looks like. So we have a scheduling program. So when you call me for a ride, we have a database that has your personal information in it, and then we log in the ride. You get picked up here and you get dropped off here at that time, and you have a child or you don't, or you have this other stop that you have to make. So we have this huge database that we can dump into spreadsheets, and we can do a few rudimentary reports on it. It's a canned program from a large transportation software company, Trapeze. They did a small program for small agencies, so it works for our scheduling. It's not real report friendly. But we have every minute that we've had somebody on a vehicle is logged in there somewhere. We can take a look at that. And what I'd like to be able to do is, like I said, I'd like to evaluate our performance, find where the inefficiencies are. Are we really still fulfilling our mission, or is there some different direction that we should take to support our riders? Be able to tell our story. So when I'm speaking to a funder, when I'm speaking to another municipality, really be able to be more than anecdotal about what we do. Find out what else the community needs. You know, can we raise our profile or will it break the bank? How do we survive, and is there any way to expand? And I think all the answers are in the data. So questions, would you like me to pull up what the data looks like? Go ahead.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier that when somebody contacts you for a ride, you try to screen them to see if they have
Yes.
other options available. So
Yeah.
suppose somebody just called you today, you have no history, you have no data on them, and they asked you for a ride from like point A to point B. How do you go about it?
So we would see,
Can you just repeat the question because
Oh, yeah.
it's set up so that
on there, right. So the question is, if we screen people to find out if they have other options for transportation, how do we deal with a new person that calls and says, I need to go from here to there? So we have, like I said, a very small staff. I have 2 schedulers that have been with me quite a while, so they know the area. And the first thing that will happen is there will be, you know, does the bus go at that time? So they'll know this. So it'll be during the day, and they'll pull up the bus schedule and say, well, you know, you can take the bus from here to there. And then the individual might say, it's a Williams student, and say, but I don't get out of class until such and such a time, so I can't make it to the bus stop. So you'd qualify. It may be someone that says, but I have to take the child to daycare. So you would qualify. It may be that they live more than a half a mile from where the bus is.
Do you disqualify people based on like their ability to ride a bike somewhere?
No. No. And you can take your bike one way. We've done that too. We had did people know where the Golden Eagle restaurant is on Hairpin Turn, heading up Route 2? For quite a while, we had a rider that would take put the bike on a rack on our van and go to work and then ride home after in North Adams. But no, it's not. It's the bus qualification is if you're within a half a mile from a bus stop, or your work is within a half a mile from a bus stop. And if that's the case, we may buy bus passes for you for 2 weeks until you get your first paycheck, teach you how to use the bus, but we wouldn't put you on our vehicle unless there's an actual reason. It's not like, oh, I don't want to get to work a half an hour early. That's just the way public transportation works. If it's somebody with a disability, we would train them to use the bus and put them onto, there's a separate system for people that have difficulty using the bus because of a physical or intellectual disability. And we can help, we may bring someone for a few weeks while we're getting them onto the right system. Yes?
How far in advance do you need to schedule a ride?
So how far in advance we scheduled a ride? We ask for 2 business days. If you were to call closer than that, if there's a van that's going by at that time and has a seat, we can put you in it. But we wouldn't send a van without prior notice all by itself. That's one of the things that's just way too expensive to do. Yes?
You mentioned reasons for taking Berkshire rides could be person with disabilities or elderly or just difficult transportation. If you could estimate what percent of each demographic that uses Berkshire rides, roughly what would that be?
Right. So each of the demographics that uses Berkshire rides, the Berkshire rides, the employment rides that we provide, you have to be able-bodied. We have no vehicles that are accessible. We are able to do that for a couple reasons under the ADA. One is because commuter transportation, I don't know if people know about the ADA. I've also done a big stint with ADA stuff. So Americans with Disabilities Act. If you receive federal funding, you have to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's a loophole for transportation. If you're commuter only, which we are because we provide employment transportation, you don't have to provide accessible vehicles. There is an ADA paratransit system that's part of the BRTA, and we could help people qualify for that, and we could train them how to use that, but we wouldn't have to put people on our system. So the persons with disabilities and seniors, what we do more for them is this travel training to help them become familiar with public transportation. Typically, that's not the rider that's on our employment vehicle. We do a lot of supported work employment with the van pool. BFAIR, Berkshire Families and Individual Resources, is a partner in our van pool. So they take a van 6 days a week and do supported employment with people throughout the whole county, but they're driving the van with their counselors on it. More questions? Yes?
This might be a little data specific, but from your experience, do you know if there's like an increase of requests during the winter season? Because maybe during the summer you'd be willing to arrive at work, like say half an hour early, or like wait outside for, like in the example you did, like arrive at daycare 10 minutes early and wait outside. But in the winter when it's snowy and it's really cold, they're less likely to do that. Would you find like an increase?
Well, all right, so the question was, do the rides increase at different times of the year? We used to have a decrease in rides over the summer, up until about, well, probably about 2009. Rides would decrease over the summer. There's a population that doesn't work when their child's not in school, and there are people that were working at schools. So we would get a marked decrease. Since about 2009, we've been almost steady, 12 months. We don't see this. We used to see a spike going to Jiminy. Now they keep people on year-round a little bit more. And then we used to see this other decrease. August used to be, for us, dead. It would be 1,200 trips or something. It'd be half of what we typically did. And now it's, for the past several years, it's almost always 2,500, 2,600, 2,200 maybe is a low a month year-round. So we're not seeing any difference, season, weather, day of the week even. We have as many people going on Sunday as on Tuesday.
Are there peak hours during the day when it's busier?
Busier, yeah, peak hours. And we do have peak hours. Almost every transportation system does. So peak hours for us are about 5 a.m. to 9, and then about 2:30 to 6 or 7 at night. And then we get a tiny little swell at 11. People getting off of work around 11. Just about 11 to 11:30, we get one little swell. But again, those are the kind of things that I have to do by hand. I dump the information and then I have to keep sorting it and filtering it. Like I don't have a way to do that really quickly. And that would be helpful. There were other questions.
So I know the airlines often use a hub model. Anybody who's flown out of Albany knows you're not going to get a direct flight from Albany. Do you have the ability to do something like that? Is that an option? Where rather than putting everybody, to help everybody get to where they want to go, to bring people to another place first, and then have a bunch of buses going within that.
So to do, the question is, do we have something similar like to a park and ride, like a hub? We could. We haven't in the past. It's more difficult for the customer. It doesn't mean it's impossible to have them hop buses. We have brought people to places, like we serve from Cheshire north. So if somebody works in Pittsfield, we have brought people to places where they catch their carpool. We've done that a few times. But that may be a way to look at the service model and see if that will make things more efficient.
Yeah, again, like you said, complicate things for the customer, but like you were talking about dropping people off at their carpool, maybe because you're complementing the other bus system, you could also even take people to bus stops and bridge that little gap rather than taking the entire route.
Right. Do we take people to bus stops? And we do that. So if you live in the town of Florida that has no bus service, but you're going to be able to, you're working in Williamstown you're working at the college, we might just bring you to the North Adams bus stop, drop you, instead of go back and forth. We do that. That seems to be something we do and then we don't. We aren't consistent with that. It seems like we change that a lot. It seems like it's working. And then we think, well, okay, so we've already had to pay $13 to pick the person up, and they've paid us $2.50, and then we drop them off. We don't get a cut rate for dropping in North Adams from our vendor. It costs us $13 if they go 10 miles or 40 miles. So it's like, might as well just leave them on there. But that may not be the best way to build the system. So there are questions over here.
I'm just wondering, so what are your biggest goals as far as, are you trying to expand to more people that might be working with the clients you're already working with, or is the problem that your funding has gone down and you're no longer able to provide that access you wanted?
What are our goals? So our immediate goal is to become more sustainable. So to be able to do what we do and know more than 10 days after you've started a project that you're actually going to have funding, so that our riders and the employers that we serve can count on us and know we're going to be around year to year. That's really, right now, that's the number one goal of knowing that we can get 400 people back and forth to work. These are people that have no other option. So if we close the doors tomorrow, there would be 400 people out of work, period. They don't have another way to get there. Some would find jobs that they could walk to, or on the bus route, but there's not a lot of jobs either. So that's our number one goal. We also really have always looked at expanding. Is there a better way to serve North County, or is there a way to take this model and bring it county-wide? In the immediate Pittsfield area, the bus service is a little better, and there are more taxi services. Once you get outside of Pittsfield South, it's just like North. They have nothing, and they have one bus route that goes down Route 7 or Route 8, and that's it. So people are really kind of in the same pickle if they can't get to work on their own by themselves across the whole county. So it would be wonderful to build something and have some kind of a structure so it was funded enough that we could take it further. There's also a lot of people here that probably could work in Pittsfield if we could go that far. So.
Can you describe why the cost is fixed around $13 regardless of distance, or could you elaborate?
Yep, so why our cost is fixed. We do our van pool service, and this may be something that, that we can look at. For the employment transportation service, we contract with a provider. We don't own those vehicles, and we don't own those drivers. Through the years, that's always been a cheaper way for us to go than to actually hire a staff, because we're a 24/7 operation. So coming into October, our new contract will be $13 a head. So every time you put your butt in the seat, the contractor's charging me $13. Last year it was $15. I got them down too, because it was either, this is what we have. We don't have another place to pull money out of. So you either don't have a contract, or we're going to go to 13. So we're at 13 just because that's what we're being charged. If you look at some of those trips are very short, but then some of them are very long. For one winter, we had somebody living in Savoy that was a snowboard instructor, from Savoy to Jiminy Peak every night. And so the $13 kind of equals out when we look at the mileage that we do. But it's simply, that's the number that we negotiated in our contract.
So that seems like it's the post office stamp model.
Mm-hmm.
You buy a stamp, doesn't matter where you want to send
Right.
a letter in the country, same amount.
Right.
There's no way around that?
We can do anything.
Okay, so
If we get enough data, we can show, one of the things that we don't do, if we stay with the model of using a private vendor, we're not here to put them out of business. I'm not here to buy them a second home, but if they don't survive, we don't survive, because there isn't a competition here as well. I don't have 4 people begging for this contract. So, all of that, the model we currently run, that all plays into it. But we could look at mileage, we could look at hours, we could look at towns as zones. We could look at it anyway. Currently, what we're doing is just per head. Uh-huh.
And then, right now, is it possible for someone to buy, say, a 5-day-a-week pass and do $2 for each trip rather than $2.50 to have some consistency come in? No.
And is it possible for somebody to buy a pass? So a group of rides at a reduced rate? No. Right now we feel like we really need every penny, and people will come in to the office to schedule. You have to pay when you schedule. So people will come in and they'll schedule their whole month if they have $50. We have people that come in every single day with $2.50 or $5 because that's what they dug out of the couch cushions. So there's the whole gamut there. But you can schedule out so you have a consistent van pattern as far as people can pay in there.
Do you know how your
how our cost breaks down per mile. Not off the top of my head, but we could do it easy enough. You know, we know how many hours we're on the road a day. We could do that with the data. It shows the miles and the actual van hours, not just because we might have 3 vans on at one time and 2 vans on at another. That's an easy calculation because we know what our budget is. But I didn't bring that with me. Yes?
Sounds like you have a pretty good working relationship with the company that provides the actual drivers and vans. Do you know what challenges that company faces specifically? Like if they have very high costs in a certain area?
Right. So the challenges that our contractor has, and I know that they have difficulty sometimes finding qualified drivers to do the shifts that we want because people go to work on Christmas, you know, and nobody wants to drive that shift. So that seems to be a bit of a challenge of having the drivers on. The other thing that I see with them is their management staff maybe could use a little bit of training. A lot of times on the off hours, they have a driver be the manager. So they're trying to drive someone and follow their own manifest, and they're getting phone calls saying, my ride is late, or I want to cancel this. You know, that's my take on their business, though. That's, yeah. Okay.
Have you estimated the taxes that are paid or that are made possible to be paid to federal government and state by giving employment to these people?
No. Have I estimated the tax benefit of all of these people that are working? No. And I would love to do that. I would love to be able, and I don't even know how you do this, to see if it really has impacted our unemployment rate. I don't know if we've really even made an impact. I see stories, day-to-day stories, but to go to somebody with some hard data and say, look, you know, this unemployment rate would be this if it wasn't for us, would be a great piece of information to give a funder or to give a government. But we don't have that. Yes?
So you said the amount of your budget that goes to paying for the rides is $360,000?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all to the contractor?
Yes.
Have you considered buying vans, hiring somebody, and doing all the coordinating out of your organization? Or is that something that you just feel, you know, ideally in the future, that might be nice, but at this moment when we're so strapped, we only have 3 people, we just can't think about it right now?
Right. So have we thought about changing our model and actually owning our vans and our drivers? We do think about it. But yes, I've never had to, over the years, I have occasionally done kind of a quick look at what the cost would be for us to do that service, and it always seems to come out higher than these other companies can do that for, and that's because they're in the transportation business. So they can put somebody in my van for 2 hours, and then they have a 3-hour shift in a taxi, so they can give someone 5 hours. I would be giving somebody 4 or 5 hours, and they'd only be working 2. But again, that's something we could explore. We probably should explore more often. There's just not the hours in the day to do it, but it certainly could help. Yes.
You mentioned some of the employers that your riders are going to are hard-to-reach places, and the employees are receiving minimum wage. Do you ever work with the employers themselves and funding these rides to get the workers to their sites of employment?
So the question was, have we worked with the employers that we're bringing employees to? And we haven't. That's one of the things that's been on my goals, you know, almost every year, to start to have some kind of a conversation with employers. We not only bring them people, if they helped fund it, it can be a tax write-off. It can be a commuter tax benefit. And it's, again, one of those things that I know we bring a lot of people to Walmart a lot of times a day. But I don't have quick enough access and time to build that argument up. It's something we have to do this year. We have to find the time to do that this year because we need to have community buy-in to survive.
And then to follow up to that, included in the data, do you have information on how much you've taken people to each employer per week and all that?
So information on how many times we've gone to an employer, weekly, daily, monthly, that's in there. You know, all of that information is in our system. And that's, I think, if I can find a way to access that and get your help, those are the arguments that I can make to show how much we're saving an employer by not having to rehire or by having absences, and then work on that to try to get their buy-in to fund some of the program. We should have some local funding. We shouldn't constantly depend on taxpayers' dollars for 100% of it. No. Question?
It's sort of related. I mean, we thought about something like maybe sort of like sponsored carpooling, because if each person costs $10 and you bring 3 people to Walmart and they're making minimum wage, there's probably another Walmart employee who's driving who would be willing for $25 to pick up those 3 people. They're making another like half their day's wage. They make 40%, 50% of what they're making for the day just by driving people to work and back, and you'd be saving half.
Right. So yes, the question was about sponsoring or trying to put together carpools, and that's another thing that kind of floats around, and we don't have, we haven't made a concerted effort for it. We have when we've had to close routes. There was a time that we used to go to Pittsfield, and in 2008, when our funding started to atrophy, that's one of the things we closed. We at the time only had 4 people going to Pittsfield, and it was $40 each way, and I just couldn't do it. 3 of them I found carpools for. 1 was upset and didn't want to talk about it. But carpools are another wonderful lower cost way to get people. We don't have to do it. If there was another way to improve the transportation system so we weren't in the business, that would be ideal. That's really what should be happening. We're here because there's all these people that fall through the cracks.
I know there are some issues with Mount Berkshire High School about how many buses they have after school, getting people. Are you able to take students to places?
We don't typically take high school students. We will if it's an after-school job. We can pick you up and bring you to an after-school job. We'll take high school students, anybody that's probably 16. We might take a 14-year-old by themselves, back and forth to employment or job training. We can't bring people back and forth to school. That's a state law. You have to be a school bus, and we are not a school bus. You can get that waived by the superintendent, and on occasion we have. We've had a couple, we had a kid at McCann that had broken his leg, and it was just difficult for him to get back and forth on the bus, so the superintendent said, can you pick them up? And I said, if you give me a waiver, we can pick them up, so that it was a less crowded vehicle and they could get on and off more easily, and they got dropped off right at their door instead of the end of their driveway. So no, we can't take public school students, and that's a state law. Yes, we can if the school superintendent will waive that. So we could. Yes?
What's your advertisement for this? Like, is it mostly just these brochures, word of mouth? And if you changed it, do you think you would get more people and therefore be able to maybe employ a different type of driving mechanism, possibly not hiring out?
Right. Okay, so what's our advertising, and how are we spreading the word? If we change that, will we get a better customer base? So our advertising is a lot of word of mouth. We have brochures around. I attend job fairs and health fairs and community meetings, and so in the community of people in need, they kind of know we exist. Every week we get somebody that says they didn't know about us. Our huge marketing scheme, we have no marketing budget, is we go through the paper every day, and if there are any job openings in an area that we would provide transportation to, I send a flyer and a letter saying good luck with your search. Know if you hire somebody from the North County area, this service is available to them. And that's it. I mean, it's another one of those things we have. It's a zero budget. But I really vacillate on that, because right now we have more rides than we can afford. I have, for the remainder of the year, from October to, because we were under the old contract until this new contract takes effect October 1st, so with our provider. So for the remainder of the year, from October till the end of July, I have $27,000 a month to spend on rides. That is about 2,000 rides. I have 2,500 requests. That's what's going to hit me next week. So we either deny some requests, which we've never had to do, or figure out a way to renegotiate some of our rides. Maybe the shorter rides are less. I tried to get this vendor to just take a flat fee and say, look, this is all we have. So no pulling any punches. This is the amount of money that we have. We don't have a penny more. So what can you do for that? And I just, I got him down to 13, but we're still in a position where we can't fund every request at 13. So, You know, if people if we were out there in the community more, would we get more support? Maybe. If we get more riders, you know, we get $250 and we have to pay out $13, and we don't, you know, so it's difficult.
We have time for one more question.
Okay.
I'll raise my hand.
Okay.
If you have several people getting on in the same spot, do you have to pay $13 for each one?
Right now, it's $13 for every butt that goes in the seat. So yes, I could pick up 2 or 3 people in one neighborhood and bring them all to the same employer for the same shift, and they all pay the $13. Theoretically, that offsets the one person that goes from Clarksburg to Vacation Village by themselves.
Was that the same when you were being charged 15? Was it still
Oh yes, yeah. Yes.
Does that include like someone taking just their child to the daycare center? Like would the child pay $15?
Last year, that's one of the things I did renegotiate. So last year, the last budget was every butt in the seat. So if I was bringing you and your baby to daycare and then work, it would be 3 trips. You and the baby, 2 trips. Then you from daycare to work, 3 trips. It cost me 6 trips when it was like $96 one day. Now we're considering, that's the other thing they did give up, is we're considering it just a work trip. So because you have another child and because you stop at daycare, you're just a multi-stop trip, but it's just $13 in one direction. So that was something they gave up. Okay.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And we will jump into
Wonderful.